You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates. Today we have the opportunity to talk with the director of LCMS Life Ministry, Deaconess Tiffany Manor, in studio. Thank you so much for joining us today, Deaconess.
I'm so glad to be here with you.
So in this position now for a few months, how many months?
A few months, installed this summer.
Yeah, so now kind of starting to find some roots here in St. Louis and living not internationally. It feels like it these days because of travel, huh?
Yeah.
but starting to find some roots here and connecting with others at the International Center and so many others that you serve with. Let's talk about a number of items on the plate for Life Ministry these days. I think one of the biggest right now is the Supreme Court Justice, the nominee.
Yeah, so that was big news this weekend, and a lot of pro-life people across the country were eagerly watching to see who the nominee would be, and I'm quite thrilled, quite excited about Judge Amy Coney Barrett. So it'll be an interesting ride now to watch and see what's coming up in the next few weeks. But as I was poking around a little bit into her past and what's happened the last time that Trump nominated her for the Seventh Circuit, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit, I noticed that it was a bipartisan vote. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and that some of our folks out there might not have seen that to know that this doesn't need to be a kind of a situation that becomes defined by which party you're a member of or even not, but that Judge Amy Coney Barrett really has the potential to be a bipartisan nominee to the Supreme Court.
What are we... Anything else that you've learned about her, or in the last? I mean, it's really only been a few days.
Yeah, so I think there's so much information out there. It could be quite the rabbit hole to Google her name and see all of the articles and things that are out there. I think the thing that I've learned the most over the past few days is, wow, this is a woman and her family that we can be praying for right now. She is receiving so much attention, and her family as well. And I can't even imagine what it must be like to live in her shoes and to walk the path she's walking right now. So that's maybe the number one thing I've learned, is that I am going to be praying a lot for her.
Indeed. You're right. That's a lot of attention, all very suddenly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else about this Supreme Court nominee?
Well, I think it would be really good if we can encourage people who are listening to contact their senators and be encouraging that this be a quick hearing and confirmation. Not so much because of the election. That's not what this vacancy on the Supreme Court really ought to be about. It really should be focused on the fact that we're entering into a new season for the Supreme Court, a new term, and they're now there's an even number, so they could split on cases pretty easily. And there's a religious liberty case that's going to be coming up for hearing in November with the Supreme Court. So it'd really be nice if the Supreme Court does not split on something like that. So if you have the inclination to reach out to your senator, you can go to senate.gov on the internet, and there's links to contact your senator. You could write a letter and send it by postal mail, or you could go online and send an email. But for those of us who are concerned about things like religious liberty and pro-life court cases, it would really be good to have this Senate seat filled soon.
Very good. What else is on the docket for today to talk about in issues of Life Matters?
Sure. So I think one thing that happened this weekend also was pretty overshadowed by Saturday's big news with Trump's nomination of Judge Barrett, and that was an executive order that he signed on Friday evening, and it was an executive order that recognize the human dignity and inherent worth of every newborn or other infant child. So it's providing protection for babies who are born prematurely, that they would receive medical care no matter what their gestational age is at the time of birth, nor what their abilities or disabilities might be. So this is a pretty big deal, having an executive order signed by Trump that recognizes that all of these children are worthy of care, and that every hospital should either provide them treatment or transfer them to some place that is able to care for these babies.
Why is there a need for an executive order like this?
Well, sadly, at a lot of places, decisions were being made when infants were born before 24 weeks gestational age. So you might have a child born at 22 weeks or 23 weeks, and they're not cared for at birth because decisions are thought like, oh, they don't have very good chances of survival, or we don't have the necessary natal unit, or perhaps this was a child born of an abortion that went badly, and this child's life is not worth saving. So now there's not that type of sad value judgment made based upon the age or the circumstances of the birth, but we're going to care for all. In fact, we're seeing younger and younger babies able to survive. It used to be, 26 weeks. When I was having my kids 25 years ago, we were really excited to get to the 26-week mark. And then it would move a little lower, and it was at the 24-week mark. Well, now we see infants survive at 21 or even 22 weeks of gestational age. So the more care we can give to these babies, the more medical advances we'll have, the more children that will survive. So that's always really, really good news. So, of course, we'd love for every baby to survive every pregnancy, but in this fallen world, we do what we can to care for all of them, no matter how old they are, what their abilities are.
It sounds to me that this also humanizes babies, that sometimes are referred to not as babies, not as children, but rather the fetus is viable or not viable are phrases that I've heard before regarding, circumstances like this.
Yeah, and those are scientific terms and medical terms, and they're good. But I always like to speak as God speaks and as Scripture speaks, and say child and baby. So you're right; it does humanize it, and giving. Acknowledging that even these very tiny babies have rights, that's a pretty big deal with executive order. So it's now policy, and the human dignity and worth of every newborn or infant. I mean, that's the language used in the executive order. So it definitely makes us see that these very young children are in fact human beings. And as Christians, we know all human beings are valued by God. So that's an important thing.
So 2 important items on the national level in terms of advocacy. What about on the local level? Let's take a look at what we can do on the local level.
Oh, sure. So this time of year in the fall, there's usually events going on at the local level. So it's good to check in and see with organizations in your town what's happening. Usually pregnancy centers or pro-life groups in your town may have some things planned. Oftentimes there's life chains. So October 4th has been a traditional date. Now this year with the pandemic, there's a variety of dates that are out there that I'm hearing about. Sometimes whatever the local health department is encouraging might affect the date for a life chain. But these are really great and safe events. It's along the line of Lutherans cooperating in externals. So it's not a joint worship service, and it's not something that we're doing with people that we're not in altar and pulpit fellowship with, but these are our pro-life groups, brothers and sisters in Christ of different confessions that we agree with about the value of human life. So we can have some of these events that let our local communities know, we care about life from conception to natural death. And the life chains usually are great safe events for a pandemic time frame. So they're outside, you distance by like 20 feet. So you can look those up on lifechain.org, and that might be a great way to locally say, I'm for life.
Very good. Lifechain.org. Check it out. Find out if there's a life chain in your community, or if there isn't, maybe an opportunity to start one.
Sure. Yeah. And there may even be prayer vigils in your community this fall season. Oftentimes from September 23rd to November 1st, a lot of communities will have prayer vigils outside maybe an abortion clinic or a Planned Parenthood. So you could look to see if there's ways that your church can be involved, or talk to your pastor about that locally.
Very good. We have just about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left of where can we find resources for life issues, or anything else that you want to share with us during our time together this morning?
Oh, sure. So our website, lcms.org/life, has all kinds of resources for topics that range from people with disabilities to resources and articles on abortion or end-of-life issues like euthanasia or assisted suicide. So that's always a really good starting place at lcms.org/life. And you can even connect with me, send me an email. I'm still pretty new in my position and enjoying getting to know lots of people across the LCMS who are active and engaged in life efforts. So I would encourage anyone to send me an email at lifeministry@lcms.org. I would love to hear what's happening in the listeners' neck of the woods and their communities, and what it is that I can do to help them out when it comes to life ministry locally.
So you want to hear about the life ministry events and things that are happening at the local level as well, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely.
lifeministry@lcms.org. Send your stories to Deaconess Tiffany Manor so she can know what's going on across the church in terms of life matters and life issues across the country. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being my guest on the Coffee Hour, and God's blessings on all the new work ahead of you in the year ahead. Thanks so much for being my guest today.
Thanks, Andy. It was great to talk with you.
You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.